You can argue the game, you can argue Army versus Navy, but when you're in the South, you know what rivalry reigns supreme. It's the Iron Bowl, and Kalen DeBoer's first at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Who comes out on top in college football's finest? Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson, breaking down everything we will see in Titletown, USA on Saturday as the Tigers look to trounce the Crimson Tide in Kalen DeBoer's debut. Real quickly, make sure that you like the video, hit that ring notification down below, and smash that subscribe button because this is your number one source for all things SEC moving forward. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Follow Dave at Mock 10 Sports, me at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. This preview is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, the official sponsor of the SEC Unfiltered Tour. Go to prizepicks.com and use that promo code SECU at sign up for a $50 instant play when you set your first $5 lineup. And this is not like any betting or gambling site. No, this is daily fantasy football for you. If you think Jalen Milroe is going to hit the over in rushing yards, hammer that line. If you think the under on interceptions for Peyton Thorne is going to be there, make sure you hammer that line too. But whatever you do, go to prizepicks.com, play the daily fantasy game that everyone is loving and sweeping the nation. With that promo code SECU, you get a $50 instant play with your first $5 lineup. Dave, Auburn's feeling itself. Signature win. They needed this one against a team in Texas A&M, knocking them out of the college football playoff picture if they were to lose in the Lone Star Showdown this weekend. They go 4 overtimes, and now the vibes are feeling pretty good. The voodoo magic of Jordan-Hare Stadium strikes again, but you and I both know this as Alabama grads. You and I both know this as Crimson Tide faithful. When Alabama is at home in the Iron Bowl, it usually bodes extremely well for the Crimson Tide. However, new era, and more importantly, a must-win, I feel like, for Kalen DeBoer to at least win back some of the fan base. And I'm not even saying that you got to win this game. I'm saying you got to dominate for 4 quarters of nonstop smash-mouth football.
No, 100%. Interesting Iron Bowl here. I mean, I was talking to a buddy the other day. He's like, oh, this is the first meaningless Iron Bowl in a while since both teams are kind of out of it. And again, it's tough to even say anyone's out of the playoff race at this point.
Yep.
Cole, after last weekend, I'm just going to sit up. I'm going to sit back and shut up and not even say anybody's. Who knows? There could be a ton of stuff that happens. Alabama could get back in it, but that's a conversation for another day. Specifically in this one, you're right. Since 2010, the comeback when Alabama blew the 24-0 lead. That's the last time Auburn won in Bryant-Denny Stadium, and they haven't really been close since. I mean, 2014 was back and forth, but Alabama ultimately pulled away. 22, they just kind of ran with Robbie Ashford. Again, most of these games have not been close in Tuscaloosa. You're right. Kalen DeBoer's first Iron Bowl. If this was Nick Saban Alabama-led team, I'm not saying like, oh, he's not Nick, like you'd hear on a Feinbaum call. But I would feel a little bit more comfortable how I think Alabama would respond coming off a game like this against Oklahoma, where you were just totally unprepared. I just don't know. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. They're not going to come out and have a phenomenal performance. We hadn't seen it. So it's kind of like we all can make up these narratives in our head. For Hugh Freeze and them, though, I mean, I think it's fair to say Auburn may have a little bit more motivation coming to this one. After a big win against A&M in overtime the other night, Hugh Freeze trying to get to his 6th win, trying to get to a bowl game, trying to get his first winning season at Auburn in 2 years. I mean, Cole, you know just what as I do. If Hugh Freeze were able to go or win this game, get Auburn to 6-6, he would have a lot to people would forget about those early midseason struggles because you just had 2 back-to-back top 15 wins. You beat Alabama and Tuscaloosa for the first time since 2010. And I'll say this. I'll tell you this, Cole. I've kind of been saying it all year, but really now, I think this game's going to be really close. And I see a total path to victory for Auburn in this. Now, will they? I don't know. You'll hear my prediction at the end of this preview. But I think this game, I see some real paths to victory for Auburn here. Alabama better be ready to come play this game because this is going to be Auburn's Super Bowl, not just because it's Alabama, but because what it means for Hugh Freeze down the line, getting to that 6 and just saying, hey, look, we had our struggles this year. But you know what? We went into Tuscaloosa. We beat the new Alabama head coach. It's an interesting Iron Bowl with all the narrative surrounding it.
Alabama leads the series all time, 50-37-1. The closest matchup since Cam marched on in and was able to beat a 27-point deficit was 55-44. 11 points has been the closest margin of victory for Alabama when they play at Bryant-Denny Stadium. But that was with Nick, and this is with Kalen DeBoer. You already mentioned this. Auburn, there's a lot to play for. a lot to play for. And it's not just the bragging rights of the state. It's not just bowl eligibility for Hugh Freeze, a coach that many people thought was certainly starting to get on the hot seat, especially after the way that they looked at times against Arkansas, the way they looked against Cal, the way that they allowed Oklahoma to come back in, get the pick six or the kip six out at Jordan-Hare Stadium. The thing that's really important here is that you have recruits sitting inside that building that afternoon. You have recruits that are on the fence. Do I go to the Plains? Do I go to Titletown? Do I play for DeBoer or do I play for Freeze? You can swing a couple of players in this matchup by showing the domination or showing the progress and potential of what this organization is. And it's not just quarterback, because you already got your Deuce Knight locked up for 2025. It's other role players around him. It's an offensive lineman. It's a defensive back. It's a linebacker. It's somebody who is deciding, I look better in crimson and white versus orange and blue. But I believe that the War Eagle future is a lot brighter at this point than what we have moving forward down Crimson Tide football.
Yeah, no, it's big for some recruiting battles as well. I mean, Auburn, we saw in the summer, picked up, I think, 9 out of the top 10 kids in the state of Alabama, with Ohio State having the #1 kid in the country. Sorry, guys, I used to follow it all the time. I haven't been as locked in on recruiting. I know surface level. I used to could tell you all these kids' parents and siblings' names when I worked in college football. Can't do that now, but I think that's what it is off the top of my head. Nonetheless, Auburn had a phenomenal summer. So did Alabama. Their cold summer did well as well. You're right, though, Cole. I mean, this is a big game from a springboard standpoint of a recruiting landscape. Again, the winner of this will be able to sell it to your in-state kids and even kids in Georgia and Florida that you both battle for. So, no, you're right. Key, again, does it matter as much as it used to? No, but I think obviously money is a big deal now, but I still think two things can be true at once. It still matters, just not as much now that the money NIL factors came in. But no, I mean, this is a big time game. Auburn winning that game last week, that's something you could be like, man, they're going to have some energy this week preparing for this game. Again, your 6th win on the table, and it's very real because I see major holes that Auburn will be able to take advantage of or could take advantage of if they execute against Alabama.
4 overtime victory against Texas A&M last week. And what was the big breaking point for this? They exploded in the first half. 21-0 lead. You watched as Peyton Thorne, who many people have scrutinized, both of us here have scrutinized, was looking like the quarterback that Hugh Freeze envisioned at the start of the year. Cam Coleman has a big-time performance, 2 early touchdowns. He finishes with over 128 receiving yards. Keandre Lambert-Smith breaks out for a 104-yard gain. They're able to trust its ground game. They put the emphasis on a guy in Jarquez Hunter to be that backbone. And for me, Dave, this comes down to one thing. Can Auburn be explosive early on? Because if Alabama is playing from behind, you watched last week, it's not just the fact of trusting Jalen Milroe's legs as being a benefactor. What it is that they are starting to play in a little bit of a panic mode. They feel like they have to go up tempo. They feel like they have to rush some plays, and it leads to turnovers and it leads to mental mistakes by an Alabama offense because the defense isn't able to do its job. When they were down against Oklahoma, Oklahoma did the smart thing by saying, let's play keep away and milk this clock as much as possible. That way, Alabama has to start feeling like they are at DEFCON 1 and the panic meter is rising through the roof. It starts by having a great execution. There was a point in the game last week down in Norman where Alabama could have been trailing by 17-3 because of if Bauer Sharp makes that catch in the Brandon Thompson touchdown, that's where the panic really sets on in. People forget about that. Auburn has the talent. Auburn, we're finally seeing have the talent. And more importantly, we watched as Auburn played exceptional in that first quarter and a half. And then they started to allow Texas A&M to work their way back in. I'm not sure that Alabama is going to be able to do that if they're playing down and out of the count, especially after how demoralizing last week's performance was offensively.
Yeah. Auburn's that team's kind of like a basketball team. They'll go on some good runs, and then they'll go on a run where they're getting outscored, hypothetically, 17-0 to let someone just get back into it's like literally it's like watching a basketball team at times like, all right, nice. They're 4 for 4 from beyond the arc to start the game, and then dang, all right, now they got it down 15-0 on this run. But no, the offense is at its best when it is running through 8, which is Cam Coleman, and 27, Jarquez Hunter. That's who the offense needs to just run through consistently. Yeah. Right. It was their best game they played all year against a good Texas A&M defense. I see a lot of that same inside zone stuff they'll be able to take advantage of against Oklahoma, because Oklahoma's game plan last week was, hey, I mean, again, Jackson Arnold threw for 68 yards. Just let's stay ahead of the chains. Let's get into 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. Let's get into manageable situations. and kind of get behind the chain. We're up 21 to no, or we're up 20 at one point, 21-3. We can just go run and hide a little bit. I think Auburn could almost do that better than Oklahoma did. Because I do think right now Peyton Thorne is a better passing threat than Jackson Arnold is right now when you factor in how many guys on the outside Oklahoma had out, 5 of their top 7 receivers. I see a major path to victory, and I'm sure Hugh Freeze, Derek Nix, all those guys, the coordinators on that offense, all the position coaches on offense are kind of salivating to go see how they can take advantage of this Kane Womack defense. And the storyline here is Kane Womack and Hugh Freeze are very familiar with each other. Dave Womack, Kane Womack's dad, was the DC for Hugh Freeze for a couple years at Ole Miss. So there's a lot of familiarity here on this staff. So I'll be interested to see that game plan. I really think that's where kind of the game is going to come down to. And again, we talked about it on the other side of the ball, Cole. DJ Durkin, again, they didn't play great this past week, but I think traditionally they do play well. I think he'll have another good game plan on how to stop Jalen Milroe, and Alabama's going to have to get creative, unlike they did on Saturday against Oklahoma. You can't keep the same game plan if you're Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer that beat LSU. Look, LSU's defense is improved. It is. But again, two things can be true at once. It's improved, but if they just would have woken up heading into the 2024 season with 11 new guys, it was probably just going to be improved. It couldn't be worse. It's improved, but still has major issues. Whereas you saw going into the Oklahoma game, they felt like they just could use the same LSU game plan, run these design runs with Jalen Milroe, lead blocker, Justice Haynes, or Jam Miller. That's not going to work against good coordinators that know how to play defense. And DJ Durkin, just like Brent Venables and Zach Alley are going to go in when they start game planning for this game like they did yesterday, go check it off on their box. Hey, they may beat us, but let's check it off. GA analysts, go get it on. Keys to victory, we are not letting him beat us with his legs. I don't blame him. That's what I would do too. Hell, that's where Nick Sheridan, Kalen DeBoer are going to have to get creative in the passing game. And to be fair to Jalen Milroe, he had a couple of drops the other day. Like, to be fair to him a little bit. Was it great? No. But you got to get a little more creative than just Jalen Milroe in the design run game. And you got to utilize your running backs, man. You got to utilize your running. You have two really good ones. Yeah, I think you have Justice Haynes and you have Jam Miller. And even Richard Young at the third spot's a good back. You have guys. Use them in the running game. It can't just be Jalen Milroe.
Dave, do you remember the last time that DJ Durkin was in Tuscaloosa?
2022 against Jalen Milroe when he was the DC at Texas A&M, yeah.
What was the final score of that game? 2 points for him.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair now, it was Jalen Milroe's first start.
Sure, but still, they were able to execute and game plan properly. I have come to the realization at this point that Alabama is going to live and die by Jalen Milroe this year. They are so quarterback dependent. And it's not just when it comes to his mobility. It's also when it comes to his passing. It also is depending on when the offensive line is unable to hold its break. The most disappointing part, I think, about that game with Oklahoma, as much as you want to say Jalen Milroe with 3 turnovers is bad, it's bad. It's not a good look for a veteran quarterback that many people were starting to peg as maybe a dark horse to make it to the Heisman Trophy presentation, maybe a dark horse to make it to round 1 of the NFL draft in 2025. The most disappointing part was how badly Caden Proctor and Elijah Pritchard got worked by Oklahoma's front 7. They were bullied. They were ragdolls. And the scary part is, Dave, this is a top 20 run defense for Auburn. Their front 7 has not been the biggest problem out on the plains. In fact, it has been one of the blessings in disguises that have kept games pretty close and convincingly at least showing us that we say, hey, Auburn is masquerading as a bad team. If they don't have the self-inflicting wounds, they probably could be fighting for 8-4, 9-3. They feel like a team that has actually kind of somewhat turned the corner in certain spots. And that's with this run defense. But if you are so complacent about trusting Jalen Milroe, whether it be you have so many design runs that you take out Justice Haynes and Jam Miller, that you're only looking for the vertical explosive passes downfield to a Ryan Williams, to a Jeremy Bernard. You're trusting too much of the inconsistent plays to where he's running for his life and then he's getting the dump off really quickly to CJ Dupree or Josh Sivas, and it's for a 2-yard gain. And now you're looking at 2nd and 8 or 3rd and 8, and you know it has to be a passing performance. That was what Oklahoma did last week. And I want to make this abundantly clear. Credit to Oklahoma. They had a game plan in motion that was going to slow down the biggest X factor for Alabama. And once they were able to capitalize and create those second chance opportunities with the turnovers, they made sure that they didn't waste their shot. They made sure that they were able to punch it on in. So if you're Alabama, you have to make sure that not only is Jalen Milroe comfortable in this game, more importantly, he is staying out of harm's way, because of when he gets flustered, it is all up for the debate. You have seen Jalen Milroe look like a quarterback that can be one of the best in college football. You have also seen him make critical errors that have allowed inferior teams to come back in, and they look like the more dominant performers. And that was the exact case. I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. Alabama was awful against Oklahoma. That is a testament to Oklahoma because of Oklahoma put Jalen Milroe in that stance. You can't allow Auburn to do that in your backyard.
No, it was a good game plan by Venables, and then they had 2 weeks to prepare for it. I'm sure they did exactly what I said. It's like, again, Jalen Milroe is not a hard game plan. It's really not. Stop him from the design run stuff. If he beats us through the air, so be it. Again, Alabama, I think people are playing the 3 high look. They aren't giving them any deep looks. You're not going to be able to take advantage of that. It's Ryan Williams or bust at times, which, I mean, there's some good to that. And then outside of that, Jeremy Bernard, they don't really have anyone to throw to. It's just, I don't know. It's an interesting – been a lot of highs and lows for this team this year. And I think they kind of felt like they figured themselves out a little bit against LSU, but I think it was a little bit more because LSU is limited athletically more so than people are used to seeing in LSU defense. Alabama took advantage. They had a great game plan in that one, specifically for that matchup. You can't just ride that, though, at some point, dude. This is the SEC. There's really good defensive coaches in this league, and you are playing them back-to-back weeks in Brent Venables and DJ Durkin. They're going to have a game plan. They're not going to just let Jalen Milroe run around and make plays. They're not going to do it. You saw Michigan in the playoffs last year. Honestly, I think DJ Durkin is going to have a phenomenal game plan again.
I do too.
He gave the blueprint out on how to kind of stop the Vanderbilt offense. And I think some of that just Vanderbilt getting beat up a little bit too. But I think a lot of people have followed that after DJ Durkin, even in a loss to Vanderbilt.
I think the same thing happened with Zach Alley and Brent Venables last week. They followed the game plan by Tennessee and Vanderbilt on how to make Alabama defensively play down to their level. That way they were able to walk away with the dub. Dave, let me ask you this just out of curiosity. From an Alabama standpoint, we know this program in and out. We both have had times with this program. We both understand what the expectations are by the fan base, by the boosters. Kalen DeBoer going 9-3 with losses to, say, Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee at this point, all of which could be in the hunt for the college football playoff, might end up feeling like a lost season because if it's still Alabama, again, this is a team that was built, ready, and made to make a run to the postseason. So we can't sugarcoat it. It still is a lost year in the sense. And because of the way that college football is working, because of the way that chaotic crap is happening every single week this year, there is still a possibility for Alabama to sneak its way in. But at 9-3 with losses to the premier teams or the better teams in the SEC, I think that most fans would say there was a regrouping year, there was a rebuilding process. Kalen DeBoer was trying to set his culture. We can live with that. I don't know how many people will be able to buy in 8-4 with losses to Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and Oklahoma offense that completely was dormant and basically had 68 passing yards. You tell me that Alabama lost to a team with 68 passing yards. Most times your offense coordinator is fired and your head coach is on the hot seat. Losing to an Auburn squad is already inexcusable in your own backyard because of what the history has told us. It's even more inexcusable when it's Peyton Thorne as your starting quarterback. And more importantly, it's a Hugh Freeze-led squad that you showed yourself a season ago. They were the ones that kind of got caught in the loss in translation period where they let Diego Pavia run rampant on them and then nearly had the voodoo magic of Jordan Hare Stadium pull that one out in the wool over Nick Saban's eyes. It's in your backyard. It's your game plan. It's senior day. It's everybody is looking at this as the premier rivalry, and you're a premier coach. It's inexcusable to lose this one after losing to Vanderbilt and losing to Oklahoma. So for me, it is a must win for Kalen DeBoer. There will be people who will never get back on board the same way they're not on board with Brian Kelly, the way that they're not on board with Brent Venables, the way that they're not on board with Hugh Freeze. They will turn in their Bama card and say, call me when we get the next guy in the building with a loss on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have already kind of made their decision, win or lose, about this game, about this season, the 2024 season. Kalen DeBoer's first. I mean, I think most people are like, playoffs would be a good first year. I know he inherited, quote unquote, a Ferrari, but again, they lost some depth. They have some guys just like other teams are losing depth in today's era. Again, I think it's fair to say a 10-2 playoff appearance was kind of the goal. Anything after that was icing on the cake. But yeah, I think people are sitting there right now like, it can't get any worse. Like, you go lose to Auburn and it's 8-4, and you give them their first win there in quite a while. Yeah,
and you let them get to bowl eligibility. Let's throw that in there too.
Yeah, for all that's Auburn's motivation. I don't know if Alabama really cares if Auburn gets to bowl eligibility, but like overall, just another loss. You're 8-4 first year, and that'd be your third loss out of 4 this year to 6-6 teams. That would be Vanderbilt, decent shot. They end up finishing 6-6, still a solid team. Oklahoma is 6 right now. If they lose to LSU, that's 6-6. And then Auburn, if they were to beat you, it'd be 6-6. So yeah, that something you got to get a little. It's kind of crazy. You trust DeBoer a little bit more in big games, and you do these ones where it's like, hey, you got to keep the focus on. There may not be a lot of national spotlight on us this week, but like we still got to go faceless opponent. As cliche as I said in one of our other videos earlier, you got to have that mindset. It feels like they're struggling a little bit with that. I think it's the big question. How do they bounce back? Again, we've seen them bounce back in a couple of losses this year, but this will be interesting because I do think Auburn is going to come in clawing tooth and nail for this game. Because I think similar to how we talked about with Georgia Tech, Georgia, probably even more, definitely more. I feel like they see a path to victory, and I don't blame them because I think that Deontay Lawson injury at the second level is key for Alabama. Yeah. Even if Alabama would have beat Oklahoma and came back and went, I was like, well, there goes their – and again, I've stated I don't think with Jalen Milroe they can win a national championship, but I think with Deontay Lawson being out most likely for the season, it's like, dude, Justin Jefferson's fine, whatever. But, like, that's where your whole season kind of went out the door, too. And you factor in that zone run scheme with one of the more underrated running backs, if not the most underrated running back in the league, and Jarquez Hunter, Peyton Thorne's a threat on the outside with his legs, too. It's a little scary. It's a little scary.
Dave, when you and I do predictions, we always go break down one player to watch. Alabama's up first because they're the home team. I think that you just brought it up. No Deontay Lawson in this game, more than likely. We don't know the entirety of the injury report just yet, but when we do find out, it's probably not going to be good. That means that you're going to have your Husky roll step up against the run. I'm going to go with Devonta Smith. I think that he has to be on point. This is why you have a guy like him be in that area to be able to allow a guy like Bray Hubbard to come on down, play in cover, to make that big time hit. We watched as Bray Hubbard got that big forced fumble against, I think it was Taylor Tatum in the matchup against Oklahoma last week. But I feel like that you're going to need to see Devonta Smith be a guy that plays in the nickel, is not afraid to lower his shoulder, go toe-to-toe with Jarquez Hunter, go toe-to-toe with Rivaldo Fairweather at the tight end position. Anybody that's lined up inside at wide receiver, he's got to be playing on point because of the defensive performance in this game. I do think will make or break Alabama.
Yeah, I'm going to go Justin Jefferson. You could go Justin Jefferson, Jahad Campbell, whoever the new which, I mean, it looks like he'll be out for this game. I think it looks like an Achilles injury to Deontay Lawson. So somebody's got to be the new green dot. That really scares you in this game. I don't think it'll be tough. I don't think that'll be talked about a lot, but except, I mean, people who follow Alabama hard will talk about it. But, like, nationally, I think that will not be talked about a lot in this game. I'm going to go Justin Jefferson. Had to go one of the linebackers. You're going to have to tackle in space. Jarquez Hunter has a very strong lower body, runs through initial tacklers. I think that's going to be key. Eye discipline, because Peyton Thorne's athletic enough to keep. I mean, he ran all over you last year. I mean, that's really that's how Auburn got their lead until Alabama had the Gravedigger play. But no, I'm going to go Justin Jefferson. I think he's got to be key. Somebody, maybe Jahad Campbell's got to step up in Deontay Lawson's absence.
For me, for Auburn, it's Keandre Lambert-Smith. Here's the reason why. Dave, he has been the most consistent playmaker for Auburn all year. He has. He has been a pristine route runner. He has been great with his hand usage. He has been excellent in the open field. His vision is second to none. He can create opportunities going up against Alabama secondary. But there's more than that. Dave, the last time that Auburn had a 1,000-yard receiver came before Y2K. We are going on 2+ decades since Auburn has seen 4 numbers attached to a wide receiver's name. He has 865 yards going into this matchup. I'm not saying it's going to happen. What I'm saying is this is your best shot with a pristine route runner, with a guy that rarely drops balls, with the vertical speed, with the ability and the vision to create opportunities in the open field. Find him, feed him, get him as many targets as possible, because what's going to happen is they're going to start to pinpoint on Keandre Lambert-Smith, and KSL is then going to create opportunities for whether a Perry Thompson or whether, more importantly, a Cam Coleman to break vertically over the top. Easy 6 points in the breadbasket at Bryant-Denny Stadium.
I'm going to go low-hanging fruit. I like to be like you. I mean, you like to go like some under-the-radar guy looks too. I mean, for Auburn –
we know who it is.
I'm going to go Peyton Thorne, dude. I mean, this game, it's going to go as he does. It's not even just his stats, his numbers. It's him getting them in the right calls, the right checks. That will be key. Because, again, I think the game plan is going to be there. Again, Hugh Freeze, very familiar with this swarm defense. Again, Kane Womack's father, Dave, was probably Hugh Freeze's best defensive coordinator during his time at Ole Miss. He was the DC in 14, 15, very familiar with the system. I'm sure Kane's going to throw in some tweaks and stuff and whatnot. Probably be on the phone with his dad, Dave, talking about Hugh's offense. But I really do think Peyton Thorne is going to be key in this game. Cannot turn the football over, get them. And even if it's Peyton, as long as I'm not hearing your name being called in a negative way, if you get them in the right runs, you're phenomenal. Great job assist. I think Peyton Thorne will be key. If he has a really good game, this game at the very least will be down to the wire if Auburn doesn't win it.
Let's go ahead and lock in some predictions. Kickoff plan for 2:30 on ABC, Bryant-Denny Stadium. Line set at -11.5 in favor of the Crimson Tide. Dave, I'll let you go first. Is Auburn going to end the streak, or will Kalen DeBoer secure a 9-3 season and pray to God that chaos occurs in college football to get into the postseason?
I don't know, all year I've kind of just been like, you know what? Because I think Hugh Freeze is desperate. He is a good schemer, does a good job in game plan preparation. I think adjustments hurt him. He's kind of the opposite, not the opposite. Opposite's the wrong way to say it, but opposite of Georgia. I'm just going to throw it out there. Georgia does a phenomenal job for game planning, but I think Hugh Freeze and the Georgia staff are night and day different from in-game adjustments. That's where Hugh Freeze struggles. I felt all year this game was going to be close, no matter what happened. Even if Alabama went and rocked Oklahoma this past week. I mean, I saw Tyler Booker was on the next round earlier, and he was saying we just were talking about external factors like making the playoffs. I think if Alabama would have went and dominated Oklahoma, this would almost maybe be even a more dangerous game because they'd be sitting there like, well, we're in the playoffs. Then a hungry Auburn team coming off a Texas A&M win where bowl eligibility is still intact. And I think it doesn't mean a lot for a lot of teams, but I think for Hugh Freeze right now, they're going to have them locked in. Man, guys, we can win this game. I feel it's going to be even closer. Cole. I'm not ready to completely go and say they win this game. Would not be shocked at all. I know you do your Colville on Texas Sports Unfiltered. I'd put this up at a 4 right now, but I am not going to straight up pick Auburn in this game. I do think this is a down-to-the-wire fourth quarter game. I think Peyton Thorne plays well. I thought he played solid last year against Alabama. I think he plays well. The run game gets going for Auburn. I do think Jalen Milroe makes some plays, some Superman plays that you're like, really bad last week, but here we go. This is how inconsistent college football and this Alabama football team is across the board. Offensively, if I'm Nick Sheridan, Alabama, I feel like at some point you have to lean on the run game. I think you can run at Auburn. I do. You got to lean on it with the running backs, though. I think ultimately they do lean. I think you have a big game from Jam Miller. I think Jam Miller has a big game. I think this game is just down to the wire, though. I mean, somehow, some way, I think Alabama wins. I can't go with the full pick Auburn, but I do think this game is just going to be down to the wire. Scary game for both teams. Could be a heart attack type game. So I'm going to go Alabama in a very close one. Don't feel overly confident in it. Path to victories for both teams here, especially with the familiarity with Hugh Freeze's offense going against his former DC's son in Kane Womack. So I'm going to go Alabama. I'm going to go Alabama 28-21.
So you're picking a one-possession game basically at the end of it all. All right. I can respect it. Here's the deal. Both these coaches need a win. They both do. For Kalen DeBoer, it's a win just to save face, be able to say, we win the rivalry. More importantly, we're still landing premier recruits. Also, we have a shot of going to the college football playoff. Chaos has got to occur. I know that we fumbled the bag, but we still have shown time and time again we can be in this game. Hugh Freeze needs to win. Hugh Freeze needs to win because there is probably no one on a hotter seat right now in the SEC after Billy Napier's conversations and how he got a signature win last week against Ole Miss, how Brent Venables got a signature win against Alabama. Two guys that we said there's going to be things that can happen to where we won't be shocked if they're fired next year, but they have extinguished it a little bit more. Hugh Freeze is so big on recruiting that you can't just allow that to be your laurel because of when recruiting becomes your backbone, the on-field execution has to deliver. And so both these teams need to win bowl eligibility, college football playoff hopes in the bane of your existence, and more importantly, just bragging rights in a new era of the Iron Bowl. This is the first time that we're going to see an Iron Bowl without Nick Saban since 2007. Auburn's been the only school to make the transition with coaches. It could be reignited to where Auburn starts to take over and Hugh Freeze starts to be the big dog in the Yellowhammer State. And Kalen DeBoer, much like Gus Malzahn, gets a few upsets, is able to keep Alabama in conversations. And ultimately, he's never able to get over the hump. And then Barners everywhere are going to say, nope, we're done. We can't deal with this guy anymore. So what does this come down to me? Number one, who can win time of possession? If Alabama can find a way to be explosive and then trust its ground game in the second half to put pressure on Peyton Thorne, this is the 117th ranked offense when it comes to time of possession out on the Plains. They don't know how to play consistent football. Now, that's not a problem because again, they have been masquerading as a bad team, but when they self-inflicting wounds with the penalties, with the pre-snap motions, with the turnovers, that hurts them. I think Alabama can capitalize. I think Alabama could give the ball right back to a team like Auburn, and they can march it down the field with no business whatsoever, and it be a 10-point swing at halftime in favor of the Tigers in your backyard. And as DeBoer is walking into the locker room, boos start portraying throughout Bryant-Denny Stadium in droves. That's part one. Can you win time possession? Part two is I got to go with who I think is the better coach, and it's Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer at the end of the day has won everywhere. Kalen DeBoer at the end of the day has proven that he can win. Kalen DeBoer at the end of the day has proven he can go toe-to-toe with the best in college football. Don't ask me. Look at the numbers. Dan Lanning, Lincoln Riley, Steve Sarkisian, Kirby Smart. He has a proven track record against every single one of those coaches, and he's undefeated in those games. He knows how to win in these matchups. He does. And I think that they do. And I think that it's going to be by at least double digits. I know that history is on my side on this one. As much as I want to believe that Peyton Thorne is going to live up to expectations, it's Bryant-Denny, it's Alabama, it's the Iron Bowl in Titletown, USA. You got to show that you're the right guy. I think that Kalen DeBoer is more of the right guy than Hugh Freeze. I'm going to go a final score of 35-20. I think that you will see this be at least a 3-quarter battle, and then you watch as the explosiveness of Jalen Milroe comes to life. 2 touchdowns late in the game to Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams. They pull away, 15-point swing, and they pray to God that college football somehow finds a way to mess up, and they're finding their path into the college football postseason picture.
Yeah, no, I agree with Cole. The key will be, I like time possession. It just can, for whatever reason, they just do not commit to the true run game with the running back. I think this week will be key because you have 2 really good ones. You just got to commit to it. But yeah, there's a path to victory for both teams. This is the most unsettling probably people have been feeling about an Iron Bowl when it's been in Tuscaloosa since 2010, certainly.
Like, rate, review, subscribe. Let us also know in the comment section down below. Do you think Alabama pulls away in the Iron Bowl? Is it a new era with Auburn claiming victory in Tuscaloosa? And more importantly, who do you think is going to have bragging rights when it comes to recruiting? Make sure that you follow us on social media at SEC Unfiltered. Follow Dave at Mock 10 Sports, me at Mr. Cole Thompson. Make sure that also you download the podcast version of the show and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I am Cole Thompson. The rivalry that dominates the South is back in store. Just give us a damn good game. Peace.